If you overattach too soon to someone you've just started dating, getting obsessive about them, becoming super sensitive to changes when you like someone, and you struggle to set boundaries and instead people please when you get romantically involved, you've probably kept attracting unhealthy or toxic romantic relationships in your life. And the reason for this is because of an unconscious force inside you, drawing you to the same types of toxic, narcissistic, or emotionally unavailable partners time and again, and causing you to self-abandon when you fall for someone. That unconscious force is sometimes called abandonment issues that comes from your core abandonment wound. Your core wound lives in your body, and no amount of rewiring your negative beliefs, talk therapy, journaling, meditation, or reading and writing and thinking about your abandonment issues and patterns will heal it. Today, I'm going to show you how to start to process and heal your abandonment issues from exactly where they live in the body. When I taught my client Jerry how to do this, within weeks of learning these skills, she was able to go no contact with her toxic ex and even maintain no contact when she visited his hometown on other business. If you finally want to heal your abandonment issues for good, this is the work that I do with my clients inside Heal Your Heart School. So let's speak on a call you can book in the link in my calendar below, and we can see if we're a fit to work together. So you might suspect you have abandonment issues because you notice a recurring pattern in all of your romantic relationships, in both the way it changes your behavior when you fall in love or the types of men you fall for. And maybe every other aspect of your life is great, but as soon as you fall for someone, you turn into an overthinking, obsessive, almost possessive version of yourself where you're constantly needing connection with them, scrolling their social media and always thinking about them and wondering where they are, feeling anxious in the uncertainty of it all, and just being more clingy and more needy than you usually are, particularly in your other friendships and relationships in your life. And your relationships tend to follow a pattern, right? You fall hard and intense at the beginning. There's this whirlwind honeymoon, and then they change completely. They pull back, conflict might happen, you get triggered, and your abandonment issues get triggered in this situation and they get even worse. Now, the types of guys you're normally attracted to are probably charming. They're great at the early stages of dating to the degree where you're wondering if it's love bombing, but they always pull back. There's always a point where they're unavailable, and they probably have some kind of avoidant or emotionally unavailable side that means you never fully move into a healthy relationship with them. And there's always a reason they can't fully show up for you, right? Maybe they've got a fear of commitment, or they're just saying they're not ready for a relationship, even though they're acting like they are with you. And perhaps their baggage is their excuse, right? They're not over their ex. There's a myriad of reasons that they would give. Now, ironically, you're actually attracted to them subconsciously because of them not being fully available. Even though consciously you crave a partner who is emotionally available, you want a healthy relationship, but you're just not attracted to the healthier types. They seem boring to you. And on a deep level, you're actually activated by the chase, right? Winning him over would prove something deeply in terms of your self-worth, because love is wired into you to come with rejection because of your earliest experiences of love with your caregivers and parents. That came with a lot of rejection. Maybe your parents were emotionally unavailable or absent or harsh and critical with you, and they rejected you either emotionally or physically or even spiritually. So you will actually only ever be turned on and feel that chemistry by someone who has this same avoidant or emotionally unavailable streak in them that produces that same level of uncertainty that you learnt as a child. And so that mysterious, dark, unavailable guy creates this kind of tension in you that you misinterpret as love. Now, that tension actually feeds your abandonment issues. It adds fuel to the fire, and you get stuck in this cycle where you only feel true attraction when your abandonment wound is being triggered. Can you see how this fuels the pattern of only ever having unhealthy relationships? So how do we actually go about healing our abandonment issues? There is a lot of information out there, particularly on YouTube, about rewiring your beliefs about your relationships, changing your self-talk, replacing that negative self-talk with empowering beliefs, using affirmations. But The problem with this is your abandonment issues don't come from your mind. Your beliefs and your self-talk are actually just the evidence, the external evidence that a deeper abandonment wound exists inside you subconsciously, energetically. And if you focus only on top-down healing methods like limiting beliefs, affirmations, talk therapy, and journaling, you will just keep circling the drain and never heal from the core of your abandonment issues. Now, your body keeps the score. That's where your abandonment issues lie. It holds the energetic imprint of the felt sense of abandonment from a very early age, probably even before you could speak. So speaking and thinking won't get you out of it because you didn't have those skills when your abandonment first happened. So we have to work from the body, which is what I'll teach you now. So your abandonment issues come from your core abandonment wound, which is like a ball of negative energy you're holding deep in the body, probably in either your heart or your gut. It's when you feel those deep feelings and emotions of sadness, loneliness, and it feels burning. There might be a sensation that you can identify in your body. So all of those emotions you've ever felt around rejection, despair, hopelessness, grief, sorrow, fear, and panic about being left alone, they've been subconsciously pushed down by you into your body, by you over the years without you even realizing it. And every time you've been broken up with, felt abandoned by someone, instead of feeling the grief, processing it, and letting it out, you've been bypassing that healing and pushing them down. So understand that when you get abandoned or you perceive being abandoned at a very young age, which is when your abandonment wound first was inflicted inside of you energetically, the emotions you felt were raw and primal and deeply, deeply tied to your survival as a child, because survival was one of the primal needs that you had, as important as food and shelter. So getting to your abandonment fears in the body means you need to establish a lot of safety in the body around feeling and processing emotions. You won't have learned how to safely process emotions before. Emotions are inherently scary and unsafe to your body, but the good news is that you can learn and rewire your body and nervous system to feel safe in order to process these emotions. So safety in the body starts with the nervous system. If your abandonment wound is triggered, your nervous system goes into fight and flight easily, and you're in a state of heightened alert. Normal regulation of your nervous system when you're feeling safe looks like this. When something happens, maybe you might get a little triggered, your body is aroused and you go into your sympathetic state, and you naturally have resources that allow you to settle back into the parasympathetic. Now, these triggers could be small, mild, even major. Maybe major brings you out a little bit, but because your body is in a natural, normal, regulated state, you're able to waver between parasympathetic and sympathetic really naturally. And this happens so many times throughout the day. You can see dogs do it and animals do it when they're out in the wild. When they kind of shake off, that allows them to settle into the body. When you're triggered by potential abandonment, this is what happens instead. Because you have this historical imprint in your body of abandonment, it's like this massive lightning bolt to your body. And this sends you way outside of your window of tolerance where you would normally be, up here, and you stay stuck on. You might start to regulate a little and start to feel a little bit better, but then something equally as devastating happens to trigger that abandonment wound, and you dump down into freeze state, right? This point is at which your body and your nervous system gets completely overwhelmed by your emotions and you just go into the off switch. This is where you dissociate. This is where you watch Netflix for hours and scroll, doom scrolling, or you just stay stuck in freeze and feel like you can't function at all. And when you eventually manage to settle a little bit, that allows you to go straight back into fight, flight, and hopefully eventually come down to here. So this is what a body looks like when it's struggling with a huge historical load of abandonment triggers and wounding inside of you. So in order for us to not get stuck into that on position and have a very clunky experience with our nervous system, we've got to learn this type of internal safety where we're spending most of our time inside of our window of tolerance, which are those two dotted lines that allow us to waver between the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So the first thing you need to do if you're in a situation where your abandonment issues are being triggered is you need to remove as many potential triggers as possible around you, which is why if you've just gone through a breakup up, and this is why your abandonment issues have come up, you've got to go no contact. It's really essential. It allows you to get back into safety more quickly, or get as much space as you possibly can by getting away from those potential triggers within reason. We're not always able to completely do this, but be very intentional about knowing what could possibly trigger you and moving away from it. The next thing you're going to learn how to do is to resource your body. So a resource is something that we can use to help us feel safe. And when we're talking somatically, a resource is actually a feeling, a safe feeling inside the body that we can use to anchor ourselves into the parasympathetic state. So I want you to spend some time learning this kind of level of safety. So take an afternoon or a morning one day and just get comfortable, get a cup of tea, do some deep breathing, maybe light some incense if that feels good, do some self-soothing, self-hug, breath work, and go inward to practice this very specific tool of internal resourcing. This is where you look at something really lovely to look at, pleasant. Maybe you've got a candle in front of you, or you can look out and see a tree and nature outside. They're both two very beautiful things that work for this tool that will shift your nervous system into a safer state. So as you're gazing at that object, whether it's the tree or the candle, whilst you're gazing at it, you're also noticing how your body feels inside. What's telling you in your body that that thing feels really good to look at? There will actually be some somatic sensations that arise. Identify where in the body you're getting that signal, that pleasant sensation, which might feel like a tingling or a downward movement or some expansion in the body, and you should start to feel more relaxed. I want you to track all of those sensations whilst you do this internal resourcing exercise. And once you've identified some level of pleasant feeling, or at least safe feeling in the body, you then need to drop into that lovely feeling like you're swimming in a beautiful clear lake. You're just lapping up the goodness of that sensation, like you're leaning into it and just taking more and more of it. This is what's called resourcing, and it is a somatic sensation that you can use to allow your abandonment trauma to co-regulate with and reset your nervous system. So the next thing to do is then to co-regulate with your abandonment wound. Now, between two people, co-regulation looks like two people coming together and holding a hug for a long time and just allowing one or both of the nervous systems to calm each other. Often doing deep breathing together can do this. And we don't always have the capacity to hug another person to allow our nervous system to downregulate. We can actually practice and do that with ourselves internally, particularly with our wounded parts. So with this internal resource that you've identified from this first step, we're now going to start to feel the edges of your abandonment trauma. The trauma might be pushing through your awareness, like it just rises up and you start crying and you can feel the pain and the tension and the sadness, and there's not a lot you can do. What I want you to do is, once you've gotten into a safe space, we're now going to just touch the edges of it in a more controlled way, rather than dropping into the vortex of abandonment, which you've been doing. And it probably feels like a sinkhole or an endless pit of despair, loneliness, and desperation. I want you to imagine instead that you're just standing on the edges of this wound and you're feeling into it, like you're walking up to the edge of it, allowing yourself just to brush the sides, but to not go into it. Going into it is a collapse. It's a flooding of the body, and we want to do that less and less. If you notice that collapse happens in the second step, go back to the first step, go back to resourcing again, and again, step up to the plate and try this co-regulation. So you've got to make sure you stay resourced whilst you touch the edges of your abandonment wound and emotions. When you touch the edge and feel like you've had enough, or you can't kind of take it anymore, or you feel like you might collapse again, bring your attention back to the candle or the tree and just take as long as you need then to come back to that pleasant sensation in your body. It's going to take quite a while to come back to that internal feeling of safety. And maybe just doing this once is enough in one session. This is a process called titration, and it allows your abandonment emotions to be slowly released in your body, like slowly releasing built up steam in a kettle. If you try and release your emotions too quickly, you're going to get burnt, overwhelmed, and you'll shut down and be back at square one. And that's that collapse I was talking about. But if you release them gradually through this titration process, healing is going to happen in a way that is more gentle and sustainable rather than overwhelming and possibly re-traumatizing. Now, it's worth noting always when I talk about somatic tools that I'm verbally explaining to you a non-verbal process here, right? Great way to go through these tools is to take these words and then to go back and apply them into your body how it feels right for you. There's no one right way of doing it. You're actually just training yourself to explore your body somatically and know that your body has its own way of doing this process. You'll largely just need to get out of its way by not overthinking and overanalyzing the process. So if you notice you start to have questions like, am I doing this right? I don't know. You're already in your head and you're out of your body. So go back to the first step, come back into the resource, and really we want to allow ourselves to stay in the body as much as possible. That's the key to having success with this tool. The last step you need to do once you've managed that safety in the body and that titration, so the emotions are starting to release, you're going to start to feel a lot better and a lot more empowered. And we want to capitalize on that feeling by being the adult now for yourself, because the abandonment wound, when you feel abandoned, it's often called the wounded inner child. And in the famous words of Terry Real, only a child can feel abandoned. So when you're feeling abandoned, your inner child is the one that's at play. That's who's speaking. That's what Terry means. And she's got her sticky hands on the steering wheel. So it's now time to bring out a more mature, wise part of yourself to reparent that little girl who's been out of control up until now. So if you were to imagine that when you were born with a human, and your number one job is to look after that human. And guess who that human is? Yourself. Your job is to look after yourself. So when we've been in self-abandonment, we haven't been doing this skill. We probably didn't know that that was our job from the very beginning. We didn't learn it, but now you do. So your job is to look after yourself. And that looks like understanding that you can never be abandoned, because you will always have yourself as long as you are doing these processes that I'm talking about and looking after that little inner child that's been out of control up until now. So you simply have to learn how to show up for yourself in ways that are meaningful, even exciting for you, that make you feel connected with others, that you belong in your community, that you trust in yourself to always have your own best interest, and leaning into relationships with people who love and value you and you feel safe and respected with. And also finding ways to just be really excited to be by yourself is an amazing antidote to this abandonment wound. All of these ways anchor new pathways in your brain and body that help you to rewire these abandonment issues. In particular, the feelings around separateness and not belonging. If you can find belonging, find connection and community, it is beautiful medicine to feelings of abandonment. Now, I love the analogy of learning to sit in the adult chair. For too long, you've been sitting in the child's chair, right? It's now time to graduate. So sit in your adult chair. What do you know you need to do to take charge and start making the right decisions for yourself? So that might look like creating a stable routine, or start setting boundaries with your time and energy. Maybe prioritizing meaningful relationships, joining clubs and groups where you can feel belonging because they align with your values, and identify what really matters to you in relationship and life, and go out and pursue those activities that really light yourself up. Get outside of your comfort zone more, right? Just do the things purely for fun every day. Just take one day for your fun, dancing, playing, laughing, or just something silly without overthinking it. And most importantly, treating yourself and your inner child like someone you really love, performing acts of kindness for yourself as well as others, and forgiving yourself for the past and letting go of that self-punishment. Self-compassion is just such an important aspect here because of the shame that comes with abandonment. So ask in every moment, what would an adult do? Right? In this moment, what is the right decision? One that is mature and wise and knows how to show up for herself and do that. And it might seem arbitrary that I'm just kind of telling you this, but there is an adult in you right now that is listening and is hearing my words. So we want to lean into that part within you and allow that part to grow more. Now, of course, if you need help with this is the work that I do with my clients inside Heal Your Heart School. I show them how to heal their abandonment issues and work with their inner child so the inner child's not in control, and most importantly, step into your adult self. So I'd love to talk with you on a consultation call. You can book a time with me in the link below. In the meantime, here are some next step videos for you to watch so you can move one step closer to having a beautiful, healthy relationship with yourself and with others. And for now, I will see you in the next video.